So first thing, welcome back to the Xena convention.
Thank you.
I know it's been a long time. And I have to say that we asked the fan to ask you a few questions, and the first thing they said that they've been missing you a lot. So how does it feel to be a part of a Xena convention again?
It's nice. It's nice. There's a Yiddish word. Do you know what Yiddish is? Yiddish is, it's like it's not Hebrew, but it's like the colloquial language. Verklempt. So there's some great Yiddish words that you just can't. There's nothing in English that's as good. I feel a little verklempt. It's like a little emotional. It's like, oh, you know, it's.
And
nice
why did you choose this convention in France especially?
Because the fates had decided that this was the time for me to come back. Because this summer, I had since the last time, since the show ended, I moved back to the East Coast. I became a mother. I had 3 little girls. My whole entire world changed very dramatically. And they became my world. I thought that I would go right back to acting, and the minute my daughter was born, I was like, nope, I'm with her now. and you know, when I work as an actor, I am so focused on what I do, and I throw myself so much into that world. It was hard to imagine that I would ever be able to do that again, because I couldn't imagine sort of psychically leaving my child enough to give that much attention to anything else. And then now my youngest one has just started school full-time. She'll be 6 next week. And so this summer, a friend of mine said, do you think you want to act again? And if you had asked me last year, I would have said no. I think that's done. I'm starting to write now also. I've also written some articles for the internet, and I'm working on a book, and that's taken a lot of my time. I went back to school, I went to graduate school. And but then this summer someone asked that question again, and I thought, yeah,
why not?
Not yes, why not, but also there's a part of me that really, really, really loves to work. And I said, yeah, maybe, and it was like, the gods went, okay. And then I got an email from Amit saying, would you like to come to Paris? And if there's a time to come back from retirement, it's to come to Paris. And I'm so happy to be here.
Cool. Let's talk about a little bit of the show. Can you tell us a little bit more about your audition for Aphrodite?
Yes. So I got the call from my agents. There's this role of Aphrodite. Well, that's nice to be asked to audition for the role of Aphrodite. Okay. I had very short blonde hair, and I thought, cool, man, they're gonna do like a, cool, funky version of Aphrodite. I had no idea the wigs that would be involved. And, I imagined Venus, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, looking kind of like a Greek column with the long white. And so I don't own anything like that, but I did my best with sort of white.
Like work.
Whatever, yeah. And I got there, and it was Xena. I think Xena had just started. I hadn't seen that show yet. It was for Hercules. It wasn't for Xena, and I hadn't seen the show. And first before I got there, I got this script, and it's a wonderful scene. It's the audition piece was for the very first scene that I ever did as the character Aphrodite, where she comes out of the clamshell and says tubular, and so and I knew Hercules, it was like an action show, so I thought of it as an action show, and then I got the sides, and I read it, and I called my manager, and I was so confused. I was like, is this a comedy, or what's going on here? And she was a huge fan of Hercules, and she was like, it's campy, and it's crazy, and just go for it and have fun, and that's what I did, and it was so fun. It was really good fun. And I have no idea who was in the room. I think it was a room, you walk into an audition and there's a whole room full of people and they don't introduce themselves, and even if they did, you would never remember because you're so kind of focused on what you're doing and trying not to be nervous and all of that stuff. So I have no, I wonder, like in the past, I've looked back and thought, were the writers in the room? Was Rob in the room? Were the producers? Who was there? Were they all in New Zealand? I have no idea. Maybe someday they'll tell me.
Talking about your character, a lot of fans think that to some extent Aphrodite was in love with Gabrielle because she kissed Gabrielle in one episode. So I was just wondering, what do you think about this theory?
I think, well, Aphrodite is the goddess of love, and so I think to a certain extent she's in love with everyone.
Yeah, true.
I do. And she definitely has, in Xena, she definitely has something very special for Gabrielle.
Yeah.
I mean, she betrays her whole family in order to save Gabrielle.
Yeah,
so, so there's definitely a special connection there, for sure. Does she love Gabrielle? I'm sorry to disappoint any fans. Does she love Gabrielle more than she loves anybody else she was into that day? Probably not. I don't know. She's that kind of girl.
Yeah.
But I also think, you know, there was a, I think it was like the second episode, maybe the first one that Cupid did, and Cupid was such a great character, and this was Hercules, I think, and maybe it was, I think it was Hercules, and it's been a long time, and Aphrodite is doing her typical petty stuff that we did a lot at the beginning of this show, where she, you know, got mad because somebody had, you know, snubbed her and not, you know, they weren't taking good care of her temples, or they said somebody else was pretty, or so, you know, she was jealous of something, and so Aphrodite was acting out, as she often did, as she did in mythology too, you know, making this person fall in love with this person, which would mean everyone would go to war, which is fine because she was mad. And Cupid's mad at her, and he's like, you know, this isn't the way you should act, you're the goddess of love, and she says, there's lots of kinds of love. There's jealous love, there's unrequited love, there's angry love, there's the love between a friend, there's all of these, and she, you know, is the embodiment of all of that. Can I give you this? Sorry.
And I guess I would have one last question, a deep question. What do you think about the relationship between Xena and Gabrielle? I ask that every time to the actors. Were they in love, or was it just friendship, or more than love?
I think this show is really special, and that's why all these years later, you people are still showing up to these things, and we're still coming to talk to you. And people still care and are still writing things about it, and so much has flourished for people because it's a piece of art. I really do. And the thing that makes something art is when it goes beyond its medium. So. So really there aren't words to describe everything that it is. And in that sort of gap between what it is and how we can describe it, people put themselves.
Yeah, everybody has its own interpretation.
Exactly.
Of the relationship.
And they put their own experience and their own desires or fears or whatever it is into that. So I don't want to tell anyone what it is, because I think probably there are a lot of people who took it at face value, which is Xena and Gabrielle are friends. I think the genius of it is obviously they were in love with each other, and I think it's a much more fun way to look at the show. And I think it's why it's so popular and so fabulous, and it came on at such a great time, and I love that about it. And I'm so proud to be part of that, really. And it's very weird for me. I went into acting thinking that my career, I wanted to be part of something that was, I mean, you know, I was very young at the time. I really wanted to be part of something that would change the world. I didn't expect the thing that I would be most known for to be a character who looks like a Barbie doll, who wears a big wig and has big push-up boobs and a pink thing and not much else. That was not how I imagined the legacy that my children would see one day. So that's interesting for me, but I am so grateful that I get to be a part of this thing, which, I mean, I haven't seen anything like it since then. It was really special, and it still is. Yeah. So I like them as lovers personally.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time.